December 1954. A private office in Beverly Hills, Marilyn Monroe sat across from three men in expensive suits. The kind of men who didn't need to raise their voices to be terrifying. The kind who smiled while destroying lives. On the mahogany desk between them lay a single sheet of paper. Cream-colored. Heavy stock. Elegant letterhead that revealed nothing. "Just sign it, Miss Monroe," the oldest man said. His voice was smooth, practiced. "You want to be a star, don't you?" Marilyn's hand trembled as she reached for the fountain pen. "I don't understand why it has to be like this." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because words on paper can be denied. Words spoken can be forgotten. But this," he gestured to the document, "this is forever." She looked down at the contract. Most of it was standard Hollywood legal language. Studio rights, image control, appearance clauses. But there was one paragraph that made her blood run cold. In exchange for stardom, promotion, and protection, the undersigned agrees to absolute silence regarding all private arrangements, witnessed events, and confidential matters pertaining to individuals of influence. Breach of this agreement will result in immediate and irreversible termination of career, reputation, and personal security. "What does that mean?" Marilyn whispered. "Termination of personal security?" The second man leaned forward, younger, colder. "It means you keep your mouth shut about what you see, what you hear, what you're asked to do, no matter what. And if I don't sign?" The third man, who hadn't spoken until now, opened a manila folder. Inside were photographs. Marilyn's stomach lurched. Pictures of her from years ago. Before she was famous. Before she was Marilyn Monroe. When she was still Norma Jean. Pictures she thought had been destroyed. "These will be on every newsstand in America by Monday," he said quietly. "Your career will be over before it begins." Marilyn closed her eyes. She'd worked so hard, fought so long, endured so much. She couldn't let it end like this. "Where do I sign?" The oldest man reached into his vest pocket. Instead of producing another pen, he pulled out a small silver pin. The kind used for medical purposes, sharp, sterile. "Here," he said, pressing it into her palm. Marilyn stared at the pin. "You want me to—" "We want your commitment to be absolute, witnessed, unbreakable." His eyes bored into hers. "Blood doesn't lie, Miss Monroe. Ink can be forged, words can be twisted, but blood is truth." Her hands shook as she held the pin. This wasn't just a contract. This was something else. Something darker, a ritual, a binding that went beyond law. But what choice did she have? She pressed the pin against her thumb. The sharp sting made her wince. A single drop of blood welled up, perfect and red. She pressed her thumb to the signature line. The three men smiled. "Welcome to the inner circle, Miss Monroe." That night, back in her apartment, Marilyn couldn't stop staring at her thumb. The pinprick had scabbed over, barely visible, but she could feel it. Like it was burning, like the contract was now part of her body. Her blood, her soul. She'd signed away more than her name. She knew that now, but she didn't know how much more. Not yet. Wait. Because what happened next changed everything. 3 weeks later, Marilyn attended her first private party at a mansion in Bel Air. She'd been told to come alone, to wear something elegant, to smile and be charming. She thought it would be like other Hollywood parties. Producers, directors, executives, networking. She was wrong. The moment she stepped through the door, she realized this wasn't about movies. The guests weren't just Hollywood elite. There were politicians, foreign diplomats, men whose faces she'd seen in newspapers, men who shaped policy, men who decided wars, and the women, beautiful, young, terrified behind their smiles. A hand touched her elbow, one of the men from the contract signing, the young, cold one. "Remember your agreement, Miss Monroe. You see nothing. You hear nothing. You say nothing." She watched a senator disappear upstairs with a girl who couldn't have been older than 18. Watched a studio head pass an envelope thick with cash to a judge. Watched deals being made. Secrets being traded. Power being consolidated. This was what she'd signed away her blood for. To be part of this. To witness this. To stay silent about this. The contract wasn't about her career. It was about control, about ensuring that anyone who rose to stardom would be complicit, would be trapped, would never be able to speak. Because how could you expose a system when you were signed into it with your own blood? But here's what nobody expected. Marilyn started keeping a diary. Not a normal one. A coded one, names disguised, events encrypted, hidden in plain sight as poetry, as rambling thoughts, as the confused musings of a troubled actress. But she was documenting everything. Every party, every deal, every crime she witnessed. She didn't know what she was going to do with it. But she knew she couldn't just forget, couldn't just pretend. The blood contract bound her to silence legally. But it couldn't bind her conscience. For 2 years she played the role. The dumb blonde, the sex symbol, the compliant starlet. She attended the parties, smiled at the right people, kept the secrets, but her diary grew, page after page after page. And then, in 1956, everything shifted. She met a journalist, not one of the Hollywood press. A real investigative reporter from New York, Arthur Feldman. He was writing a story about corruption in the film industry. Following money trails, connecting dots, they met at a cafe, anonymous, careful. "I can't talk to you," Marilyn said immediately. "I signed something. A contract." Arthur leaned forward. "What kind of contract?" "The kind you can't break. Miss Monroe, no contract is unbreakable. If it involves criminal activity, it's not legally binding. You know that, right?" She laughed bitterly. "You don't understand. This wasn't a normal contract. They made me sign it in blood. Like some kind of oath, like I sold my soul." Arthur's expression changed. He pulled out a notebook, started writing, "Tell me everything." And she did. Not the names, not the details, but the structure, the system. The way Hollywood's power brokers used blood contracts to ensure silence, to trap stars, to create a network of complicity that protected the powerful and destroyed anyone who spoke out. "I have documentation," she whispered. "Hidden, coded, but it's there. Everything." Arthur's eyes widened. "Will you give it to me?" Marilyn hesitated. The contract flashed through her mind. Breach of this agreement will result in immediate and irreversible termination of career, reputation, and personal security. I need to think about it. Now, this is where it gets dangerous. Someone had been watching, following her, reporting back to the 3 men in the Beverly Hills office. 2 days after her meeting with Arthur, Marilyn received a package at her apartment. Inside was a single photograph. Arthur Feldman, walking to his car, a red X drawn over his face, and a note. "Remember your blood oath. We always collect our debts." Her hands shook as she burned the photo. They knew. They'd been watching. And now Arthur was in danger because of her. She called him immediately. "You need to leave Los Angeles. Right now. Drop the story. Forget everything I told you. Miss Monroe, they'll kill you. They'll make it look like an accident, or a suicide, or a robbery gone wrong. But they'll kill you. I know how they work. Silence on the other end. Then, come with me. Leave this city. We'll expose them together. Your testimony alone could—" "I can't. The contract. The blood. I'm bound to this." "You're not bound by anything except fear." Maybe he was right. Maybe the blood contract was just psychological, just theater designed to make her feel trapped, to make her believe she couldn't escape. But the fear was real. The men were real. The power they wielded was real. Arthur left Los Angeles that night. Without the story, without her testimony, without the evidence, and Marilyn stayed, trapped by her own signature, written in blood. But the story doesn't end there. Years passed. Marilyn's star rose higher. She became the biggest actress in the world. But the parties continued. The secrets accumulated. The blood contract held. She attended more gatherings, witnessed more crimes, filled more diary pages, and she started to realize something. She wasn't the only one who'd signed in blood. There were others, other actors, other actresses, all bound by the same contracts, all trapped in the same system. They recognized each other at the parties. A certain look in their eyes, a shared understanding. They'd all signed away their freedom for fame. One night at a mansion in the Hollywood Hills, Marilyn found herself standing on a balcony with another actress, younger, newer to the scene. Eyes red from crying. "They made you sign it too, didn't they?" Marilyn said quietly. The girl nodded. "I didn't know what it meant. I just wanted to be in movies. We all did. Can we ever get out?" Marilyn looked out at the city lights. Los Angeles spread below them like a spider web. Beautiful and deadly. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've thought about it." running away, changing my name, starting over somewhere nobody knows Marilyn Monroe. But you haven't, because they'd find me. They always find people who run, and they make examples of them. The girl wiped her eyes. So we're just stuck, forever, watching and staying silent. Marilyn thought about her hidden diary, about Arthur Feldman, about all the secrets she'd documented, about the blood contract that bound her. Maybe not forever, she said slowly. Maybe just until we find another way. And then came August 1962. Marilyn's final months were chaos. Prescription pills, paranoia, erratic behavior. Everyone said she was falling apart, having a breakdown, losing her mind. But what if it wasn't that simple? What if she'd finally decided to break the blood contract? What if she'd reached out to Arthur Feldman again? What if she was planning to release everything in her diary? What if the 3 men in Beverly Hills found out? The official story: Marilyn Monroe died of a drug overdose, probable suicide, found in her bedroom. Tragic end to a troubled life. But there were questions. Strange details. Inconsistencies in the timeline. Witnesses who saw cars at her house that night. Phone calls that were never explained. A diary that disappeared. And the blood contract? Never found. No record of it. As if it had never existed. Decades later, in 2019, something surfaced. An estate sale in Beverly Hills. Old Hollywood memorabilia. Furniture from defunct studios. Boxes of papers from closed law offices. A collector bought a filing cabinet. Inside were documents from the 1950s. Contracts, agreements, legal papers. And there, in a locked drawer in the back, was a cream-colored sheet of heavy paper. Elegant letterhead. A signature at the bottom. Marilyn Monroe's signature. In blood, the contract was real. It had always been real. And now, 60 years later, it was public. The clauses. The threats. The blood oath that had trapped her. Experts authenticated it. Confirmed the blood was hers. Confirmed the signatures of the 3 men, all dead now. One died in a car accident, one from a heart attack, one from a fall. Convenient. Convenient exits for men who'd held so much power. The contract became evidence. Not for a trial, everyone involved was long dead. But for history, for understanding, for seeing the truth of how Hollywood's golden age really worked. Other contracts surfaced. Other actors who'd signed in blood. Other careers controlled. Other lives destroyed. The system was exposed. Not by Marilyn's diary, that was never found, but by the very contract that had bound her. The blood oath had finally broken. Just not in the way anyone expected. So what's the real story? Did Marilyn die because she tried to break the contract? Was it suicide? Was it murder? Was it just tragic timing? We'll never know for certain. But we know this: she signed a contract in blood. She was bound to silence about crimes she witnessed. She documented everything anyway. And she died before she could speak. The contract was meant to last forever, to ensure eternal silence, to make sure certain secrets never came out. But blood contracts have a funny way of betraying their makers, because blood doesn't just bind. It also reveals. It leaves traces. It tells stories. And 60 years later, Marilyn's blood told her story. Not the one she wanted to tell, her words, her diary, her testimony, but a story nonetheless. A story about power, about control, about the price of fame, about what Hollywood demanded from its stars, about what happened when you signed away not just your name but your blood. Marilyn Monroe became the biggest star in the world, but the contract she signed in blood ensured she'd never be truly free. That's the cost nobody talks about, the hidden price of fame, the contracts signed behind closed doors, the blood oaths that bind. Marilyn paid that price. She lived with it. She died with it. And her blood, dried on a piece of paper locked in a drawer for decades, finally told the truth. The blood contract is real. The system it protected is gone. But the lesson remains. Some agreements cost more than money or fame. Some signatures can't be undone. Some debts are written in blood. And some secrets stay buried until the very evidence meant to hide them brings them to light. That's what happened to Marilyn. The contract meant to silence her became the proof that she was never free. The blood meant to bind her became the testimony she never got to give. And now everyone knows. The contract exists. The blood is real. The system was exposed. Sometimes the truth doesn't come out the way we plan. Sometimes it takes decades. Sometimes it comes from the very chains meant to hold us down. Marilyn Monroe signed a contract in blood. Nobody knew why. Now we all do. And that changes everything. But here's what we need to talk about. Because this isn't just Marilyn's story. This is a story about every person who's ever been trapped by a choice they made when they were desperate, when they were young, when they didn't know better. Think about it. How many times have you signed something without reading it? Agreed to terms and conditions without scrolling through? Said yes to something because you felt like you had no other choice? Maybe it wasn't a blood contract. Maybe it was a job that slowly consumed your life. A relationship that made you feel smaller every day. A dream that turned into a prison. A choice that seemed right at the time, but became a cage you couldn't escape. Marilyn signed that contract because she thought it was her only path to the life she wanted. She'd been poor, abandoned, forgotten. And suddenly here was a door opening. A chance, an opportunity. All she had to do was sign. How many of us would have done the same? We look back now and think, I would never sign something in blood. I would never agree to stay silent about crimes. I would never trap myself like that. But would you, if you were 27 years old and someone offered you everything you'd ever dreamed of? If the alternative was going back to nothing? If saying no meant watching your one chance disappear forever? Marilyn made a choice. And yes, it was the wrong choice. But it was a human choice. A desperate choice. A choice made by someone who'd been told her whole life that she was worthless unless she was beautiful. Unless she was desired. Unless she was famous. The system that created that blood contract knew exactly what it was doing. It didn't target people who were strong and secure. It targeted people who were vulnerable, hungry, desperate, people who could be controlled because they'd already been broken by life. That's how exploitation works. It doesn't announce itself. It offers you a dream. It makes you feel chosen, special, lucky. And by the time you realize what you've agreed to, you're already trapped. And here's the part that haunts me. Marilyn knew she was trapped. She knew the contract was destroying her. She tried to fight it. She kept that diary. She reached out to Arthur. She looked for ways to break free, but she also blamed herself. In her private moments, the ones we know about from people who were close to her, she would say things like, I made this choice. I signed it. It's my fault. That's what trauma does. It makes you believe you deserve your cage, that you built it yourself, that you have no right to ask for freedom because you agreed to this. You signed the contract. You made the choice, even when that choice was made under duress, under manipulation, under the pressure of a system designed to trap you. How many people are living in their own version of Marilyn's contract right now? How many people are staying silent about something they've witnessed because they think they have no right to speak? How many people are trapped in situations they agreed to when they were desperate, and now they feel like they can't leave because I made this choice. It's my fault. That thinking is exactly what the contract wants. That's how it maintains its power. By making you police yourself. By making you believe that your cage is your responsibility. But here's the truth. Just because you signed something doesn't mean you deserved what happened after. Just because you made a choice doesn't mean you're responsible for how others exploited that choice. Just because you agreed to something once doesn't mean you have to stay trapped forever. Marilyn couldn't break her contract. The system was too powerful. The men who controlled it were too dangerous. She tried. God, she tried. But in the end, she couldn't get free. But you're not Marilyn. Your contract, whatever form it takes, doesn't have to be permanent. The cage you're in doesn't have to be forever. Maybe you signed something you regret. Maybe you made a choice that's haunting you. Maybe you feel trapped by your own decisions. But contracts can be broken. Cages can be opened. Choices can be unmade, not always easily, not always safely, but they can be. So why does Marilyn's story matter today? Because it reminds us that behind every famous person, every successful image, every glamorous life, there's often a hidden price, a sacrifice made, a freedom traded, a piece of soul given away. We look at celebrities now and think they have everything. Money, fame, beauty, power, we envy them. We wish we could trade places with them, but we don't see their contracts. We don't see what they signed away, what they agreed to, what they're not allowed to say or do or be. Marilyn Monroe was the most famous woman in the world. Men desired her. Women wanted to be her. She had wealth and fame and beauty, and she was trapped. Absolutely trapped. By a contract she signed when she was young and desperate and didn't know any better. That's the real story. Not the glamour. Not the fame. Not the legend, but the trap, the cage, the blood contract that bound her until she died. And when we idolize fame, when we chase celebrity, when we think success means being recognized and admired and envied, we need to remember Marilyn. We need to remember what that life actually cost her. She paid with her blood. Literally. She pressed her thumb to that paper and left part of herself there, and she never got it back. Here's what I want you to take from this story. Read the contracts in your life. Not just the legal ones, the emotional ones, the relational ones, the ones you've made with yourself about who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to accept. If you've signed something that's destroying you, whether it's written on paper or just carved into your heart, know this: you can walk away. You can break it. You can choose freedom. It won't be easy. There will be consequences. People might be angry. You might lose things you thought you needed. The door might close on dreams you've been chasing. But you'll be free. And freedom is worth more than any contract, any promise, any blood oath. Marilyn never got that freedom. She died trapped. But her story, her contract discovered decades later, freed the truth. It exposed the system. It showed the world what had been hidden. Sometimes we can't save ourselves, but our stories can save others. If you're trapped right now, your story matters. Your contract, whatever it is, doesn't define you. You're more than what you signed, more than what you agreed to, more than the cage you're in. You're not Marilyn Monroe. You don't have to die with your secrets. You don't have to stay silent until someone finds your contract 60 years later. You can break it now. You can speak now. You can walk away now. And if you do, you'll be doing what Marilyn always wanted to do but couldn't. You'll be free. You'll be alive. You'll be telling your truth while you still can. That's what she would want for you, for anyone trapped like she was, for anyone who signed something they regret, for anyone who feels bound by their past choices. Break the contract. Walk away from the cage. Choose yourself over the system that wants to control you. Do it for Marilyn. Do it for everyone who couldn't. But most importantly, do it for yourself, because you deserve to be free. You always have. No contract written in ink or blood or fear can change that truth. You are more than what you signed. Remember that, always.